Hello there, welcome back to Glowland. I'm so happy that you've made it to episode 6. Feels weird thinking that I've somehow done 5 episodes before this, but I love it. I hope you've been enjoying things so far. From the title, you can see that I'm talking about sunscreen this week. Yes, it's getting its own episode. Of course it is. I have to share my love for it and my obsession. But got 2 things first. One is, or actually, I guess I could say 3 things. One is less serious. One is sort of serious, and one is very serious. So the less serious thing is a couple of changes I've made to my skincare routine this week. I had like a mini breakout. I think I accidentally ate dairy, the bane of my existence. So I had a couple of deeper zits that left some scars. And so I'm reintroducing alpha arbutin into my skincare routine tonight. I ordered it from Sephora and it got here pretty quick. So I will be using that for at least a couple of weeks just to help fade the dark spots that were left from that little breakout. But they're really nothing crazy, so that's about all I'll be doing. The other change I made is I ran out of my Benilico Clean It Zero cleansing oil balm thing. So I actually already had my next oil cleanser on hand because of course I did. So I'll be using the Beauty of Joseon solid oil cleanser going forward. And I used it for the first time last night. I really liked it. So I think it'll be good. It didn't immediately cause any issues. It took off my mascara very easily. So I think whenever I wear a full face of makeup next, it's going to do well. So my second thing, which is medium serious, is I found out a few days ago that I'm moving home to Los Angeles. I got a new job. I'm extremely excited. I'm gonna really, really miss Pittsburgh and all of my friends here. So that part is really sad and that sucks. And it's unfortunate that there aren't more nonstop flights between the cities. But I'm gonna pop back and forth as much as I can. But yeah, moving back to sunny Los Angeles, where I believe it is in the 60s this week. Yeah, it's gonna go down to like the 20s here in Pittsburgh tonight. So, I mean, not to brag, but that's what I'm heading to. But Pittsburgh, I'll see you in the summer when it's warm. Anyways, my third thing, the serious thing, is just before I even get started on the entire topic of sunscreen, I just wanted to address colorism and just what it's like sort of approaching this as a woman of color, as a Black woman. Just because I think I've mentioned to a couple of people before, like, oh yeah, like I love using sunscreen, and that's really because it helps with my hyperpigmentation. Like if you have hyperpigmentation, using sunscreen helps it to not get darker, and it helps your spots to fade faster, which is, obviously that's what my goal is here. But just to be clear, yeah, I'm not like afraid of tanning, and even if I were, sunscreen would not stop it. I tan so easily, as my friends know. I once got a tan line in March and then wore long pants for the next few months, and then my friends saw my legs again in like June, and I still had the tan line, and they were like, how? Like it was from like bike shorts, so it was literally like my mid-thigh. They're like, how did you get that tan in one day and how is the line still there? And I was like, it does not matter if I put on sunscreen or not. Like, I tan so quick. So I really do have a winter foundation and a summer foundation. But yeah, colorism is, if you don't know what it is, it's just basically another form of, I mean, it stems from racism. It's sort of this idea of people wanting to be as light as possible and sort of demonizing darker skin tones. Obviously a huge issue, obviously something that people of color have to deal with. And in some countries, it is, I mean, really just ingrained into the culture, and people really, really focus on being as fair as possible, which is horrifying. So, yeah, definitely just wanted to address that, just in that, yeah, I'm not telling anyone to put on sunscreen for fear that they get darker. Oh no. That was extreme sarcasm, as you can tell. But yeah, really, because it's important to protect our skin. And I mean, there's, of course, the superficial reasons of dark spots and not wanting to age as quickly and everything, but also the very serious reasons of preventing skin cancer and I mean, just general damage and things like that. So, and as I discussed with Shessa, my sister, last week, yes, Black people can get skin cancer, and it often goes undiagnosed, because I even researched this, and I was like, I mean, I guess people just don't think that Black people get skin cancer, but it's also because doctors often don't know what it looks like on darker skin. They literally just don't. They just don't realize that it's skin cancer, which is saddening and obviously part of the systemic issue there. So, all that being said, let's get into the actual topic of the episode, which is just sunscreen in general. I already told you why I use it, which, aside from preventing any health issues, I use it because I'm very prone to hyperpigmentation. If I get a zit, even if I don't pop it, it'll probably have a scar. There's going to be a dark spot there. And there are a lot of things that I've mentioned before to help fade those dark spots. Different exfoliants, usually enzymatic and chemical and physical exfoliants will help with that. And then there's some actives like retinol, alpha-arbutin. Where's the emphasis in arbutin? Anyways, and vitamin C can also be helpful. And niacinamide is a huge one. That's a very popular one. I personally used niacinamide in the past and just found that it didn't really seem to do much for me, which I thought was interesting. So I've turned to other actives, but other actives like retinol and exfoliants and alpha-arbutin, those do make your skin more prone to sun damage. So it's very, very important when you're using any strong actives like that you also consistently apply sunscreen. So that's kind of why I'm so persistent about it. It beyond just generally being like a skincare junkie, it is because if I am using all of these things to help with my dark spots and then I don't use sunscreen, it's just, creating a different problem. So yeah, they really do go hand in hand. If you're using one, you should be using the other, or not. You don't have to use actives if you're using sunscreen. If you're using actives, you should be using sunscreen. And in general, you should just be using sunscreen. Yeah. So all of that being said, for the past few years, I've basically exclusively used Korean sunscreens. Now, the reason for that is I really don't like American sunscreens. Like, just straight up don't like sunscreens from the United States. That is because, as some of you may know, there's really only two options for sunscreens in the US, and that's physical sunscreen, which is there's like titanium dioxide or whatever. There's like physical filters, and those work by basically being white pigment in the sunscreen that reflects the light off of your face. As you guys probably realize, the color black absorbs light, and then white reflects light. Shout out to physics in 8th grade science or whatever. So yeah, those sunscreens literally are like reflecting the light, basically. And I don't love those ones just because they tend to be really greasy, which is probably to help them be more spreadable, because I mean, just putting straight up metals or whatever kind of whatever texture titanium dioxide is, I'm sure it isn't easily spreadable by itself. It's probably chalky or something. I assume that's why sunscreens are the way they are. And that's not really pleasant to have on your face, and it's definitely not pleasant to put under makeup. So I never really liked those. And of course, once I'm already dark enough that they show up on my skin immediately, and if I get any darker and then I put on physical sunscreen, I look hilarious. I look undead. So all of my women of color, people of color, know that, yeah, just you can't be going out in physical sunscreen like that. It just, and now they have like the nano whatever titanium particles or whatever. And that's great because those blend, like they rub into your skin more easily, and it's easier to, have that white cast. It's when you get super pale from your sunscreen, it's called a white cast. And that's great, but most of the time I still just don't like the formulas of those sunscreens. Like I use my sunscreen sort of as moisturizer a lot, and if I don't like it as a moisturizer, I'm not going to use it, and I'm not going to want to reapply it in the middle of the day, I'm not going to be out at the beach and then I put on sunscreen and it makes me look like a grease ball. I hate that. So there's that. Then there's chemical sunscreens, which is sort of the obvious solution to that issue. And for a while, that's what I used. And those are sunscreens with filters like avobenzone and oxybenzone, or there's I think like 4 different filters for chemical sunscreens in the US. And those are fine, but I found that my skin just doesn't like them that much. Like I don't know. It's been so long, I don't remember exactly how my skin reacted, but I just remember trying a couple of different ones. Like I think I had like the La Roche-Posay one, and then like an Aveeno one, and I tried a couple, and I think my skin just like did not like it, or was irritated or something, and I was like, oh, it's not the products themselves really, it's just my skin doesn't like those chemical filters for some reason. And those filters are honestly like kind of outdated. So those 2 reasons are why I at this point use Korean sunscreens, because in Korea they have developed newer filters. They have a much faster process for approving new sunscreen filters, whereas in the US our process is very slow, which is why our sunscreens are so like, it's the same. It's been the same for decades. They haven't really innovated anything because the FDA hasn't approved anything. So I use Korean sunscreens because their version of the FDA approves like sunscreen filters much more quickly. And so my sunscreen at the moment, the Beauty of Joseon one, has an SPF rating of 50 PA+++. Now, I'll be so honest, did I look up what that meant before recording? No, why would I do that? I've looked it up before, and I think the first time I looked it up, I was like, I don't really get that. And that's probably why I personally am not a sunscreen chemist or whatever. I'm not a cosmetics developer or whatever. But basically the PA+++ like refers to it having even better sun protection. But the part that Americans know well is the 50. And Shessa and I mentioned it last week, but basically once you get to SPF 50, it doesn't make a huge difference going past that in terms of sun protection. So like SPF 70, sometimes I'll buy that for my body just cuz, but SPF is determined, if I remember correctly, it's the way that I just didn't research this at all. You're getting this off the dome. In fact, basically every episode is off the dome. But if I remember correctly, SPF refers to its sun protection factor, and it refers to how long you can be out in the sun before, I don't know, basically before you start getting like sun damage. And so if you start with having really pale skin, so you don't really have a lot of natural melanin, and therefore you naturally don't have any sun protection, then that SPF is going to take you however far. And that's probably what they determine that number based off of. If you have some or a lot of melanin, if you have some like myself, then you naturally already are going to last a little longer in the sun before experiencing, a burn or anything. And that sun protection factor is basically going to add to that. It's going to add to however much natural sun protection you have. And I think that's part of the reason why some people, they're like, I put on so much sunscreen and I still get burnt. And it's like, darling, you were starting from zero, and you got like 50% protection probably, whereas I was starting at 50%, and so I'm probably at like 100, so sorry, not sorry, all the fair skinned people. Yeah, it sucks to suck, I guess. Anyways, so SPF 50 is kind of, I believe it's at that point where even if you tried to go beyond that, your sunscreen would just rub off or wear off or whatever, just like faster than that sun protection would even run out. So if with SPF 50 I could be outside for, an hour and a half before any damage occurred, and with 70 I could be outside for 2 hours before any damage occurred, I mean, either way you should be reapplying every 2 hours, because you probably sweat if you're out in direct sunlight, like you probably sweat off some of your sunscreen anyway. So that's why if I'm like going to be out and about, I'm at the beach or, on a hike or something, I do make sure to reapply my sunscreen every couple hours. It's really like 2 to 3 hours I'll do it, because I mean, come on, it's a lot. So yeah, that is what Lena remembers from years of looking into this and then forgetting, and then looking into it again and forgetting again. That's my version of sunscreen research that you got just there, just now. You're welcome. I hope that was confusing. I'm not even gonna hope that it wasn't confusing. So my sunscreen is SPF 50 PA+++. There was an entire debacle also a couple years ago. Did I discuss this before? There was like a debacle where in Korea they basically found out that the way that they were testing sunscreens was not completely accurate, and that a lot of their sunscreens had a much lower efficacy than they previously thought. And so there were some sunscreens that had been tested by a certain company and they got recalled, and it was very dramatic. And yeah, some big brands were affected by it and had to pull their sunscreens from shelves and issue, warnings and stuff like, hey, like, you think your sunscreen is SPF 50, but it's actually 30, or it's actually equivalent to like 15, which is terrible, because if you've been trusting in a product to keep you safe from literal like skin cancer and you find that out, I'd personally be pretty angry. Luckily, I wasn't using, I think there was one sunscreen that I had used in the past that had been part of that, but I wasn't using it anymore at that point. I had started using something else, and I was good to go. But yeah, so now that, they're even more rigorous in testing sunscreens in Korea. And I feel that makes me actually feel really good, because then I'm like, okay, cool. I know for sure that they probably tested the hell out of my current sunscreen. And that's probably why it's so effective. Because my dark spots do fade pretty quickly. I feel like when I was a teenager, they did not fade so quickly. And now it usually takes a couple weeks for one to look significantly lighter. Another thing I love about Korean sunscreens, and I think they sort of started this and it moved into the US, is that they have different textures for their products. A lot of them, of course, are like the classic sort of moisturizer-y texture. They're always really light. They're never like greasy. Some are a little more moisturizing than others. Some are very much just like a thin fluid that just like sinks into your face really quick. And then they also have a lot of like gel texture ones, which is really cool if you have oily skin and you need something that isn't gonna add to the oiliness. It'll still protect you. It'll still have some level of like moisturization, but it won't be like slathering Aquaphor all over your face. So yeah, that's sort of how the sunscreen world is right now. I say the sunscreen world as though, I mean, there's some formulator out there they could like listen to this and be like, this girl, this is such an American take on sunscreens. Anyways, I'm rambling, but I guess I'll just end by saying that was like I feel like that actually wasn't a quick episode. I was like, oh, we're like 10 minutes in. I'm 23 minutes into this episode. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. And I guess I'll give a few of my favorite sunscreens. Of course, right now is the Beauty of Joseon, but I've also loved, I think it's from CosRX, the Aloe Soothing Sunscreen. Wait, I have my laptop out. We're getting real techie here by Googling something. Yep, it's CosRX. Great to know off the dome. The other day, I recommended to my friend Jacob the Biore, I think it's the Watery Essence sunscreen. Yeah, that's it. And that one's more of a gel texture, and I really like that one. And then Crave Beauty also has one, but I'm not sure what kinds of filters are in it, because Crave Beauty, I think, they had like a US version and a Korean version, because I don't think they were like allowed to market a sunscreen in the US with filters that weren't approved in the US, which makes sense. You can't go around being like, hey, yeah, this totally works for sun protection, when the FDA hasn't actually confirmed that it works for sun protection. You can't make those claims. Anyways, I do really like the Crave Beauty one as well. But yeah, those are a few of my favorites. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening to the entire episode. Once again, if you're enjoying, go follow me on Instagram at glowlandskin. Yeah, and I'm super excited for this move, and I'm hoping, I know at some point I'm gonna have more guests on. I just have to figure out who and when and now where. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, cat memes and videos, feel free to DM me on my Instagram. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.